Hello, and thanks for joining PCI's Coded Videocast. I'm Kristen Johansson, Editor-in-Chief at PCI. According to a report by Grandview Research, the global antimicrobial coatings market is expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 12.8% from 2020 to 2027. Antimicrobial additives provider BioCote has reported an unprecedented increase in revenue over the last year, with many of its customers requiring antimicrobial paints and coatings. I have asked Jennifer Collier, Partner Development Manager at BioCote, to join me to discuss the rise in demand for antimicrobial coatings, downfalls of this increased demand, and how the antimicrobial industry is regulated. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, Kristen. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. I'm glad to have you on the videocast. Jennifer, with the world focusing so much on hygiene, has there been an increase in demand for antimicrobial coatings?
Yes, well, I would say there has been an increase, kind of a universal increase in interest across the whole of the antimicrobial industry, not just an increase in demand for antimicrobial coatings. Although antimicrobial specifically for coatings wasn't really born out of the pandemic. We as a business have been supplying the coatings industry for over 25 years now. BioCote we were founded in response to the need for antimicrobial coatings, and then we grew from there. However, it's definitely now has a more prominent interest. The kind of purpose of including antimicrobial technology is to protect the coating itself from microbes, specifically those that can cause odors, staining, and material degradation. There are several different kinds of antimicrobial technologies that can be included into coatings, not just the built-in types, which is the kind that BioCote predominantly supply. For example, there are in-can preservatives which are designed to protect coatings, particularly wet coatings, from going off in the can due to microbial activity. BioCote technology essentially continues the protection of that coating, but post-application. Something we're seeing a lot more of is that a lot of companies are including antimicrobial as a standard feature rather than a specialty range. So antimicrobial as a product offering is more available to customers.
What has been one of the downfalls of this increased demand for antimicrobial product applications?
So whilst overall the increase in demand has been overwhelmingly positive, one of the things we have seen is a lot of activity in the marketplace involving claims that aren't necessarily accurate or compliant with the regulations. From our position as experienced operators within the industry, this kind of activity can be viewed as opportunistic behaviour, with companies making quite bold claims that can be seen to be misleading. Whilst there are very clear benefits to our technology, we are honest with our customers about the limitations of our technology as well as its performance, and we encourage our customers to do the same. Technologies like BioCote, we're not a one-stop shop to all hygiene problems, but we're part of a wider solution as part of a product offering. For example, we work together with cleaning regimes to make sure that that product remains microbe-free, but the product that contains BioCote technology still has to be cleaned. As a business, we believe very strongly in credible messaging. Everything we put out to market is based on data that can stand up in court, so to speak. In my role, I invest a lot of time working with our customers to formulate messages that can help communicate the benefits of antimicrobial products and why their customers should care. But everything we do is based on fact, it's based on data, and it's very much rooted in the reality of how that product will actually perform. Members of the general public can't be expected to drill down into the meaning of these messages, and ultimately that rogue messaging can lead to them making buying decisions and spending more money on a product that makes promises that just won't deliver. From BioCote's perspective, our concern or the kind of fallout is that it could damage the reputation of the industry as a whole for those of us that believe very strongly in being compliant and communicating the benefits of antimicrobial products without sensationalist performance claims. We would also feel the negative effects of that damage caused by any broken consumer trust.
How is the antimicrobial industry regulated in the United States?
Okay, so prepare for a bit of jargon. I'm about to throw quite a lot of information out there. So the products that we supply and our customers' products that incorporate the technology we supply fall under the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide and Rodenticide Act, or FIFRA. Which in turn is governed by the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA. I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. Antimicrobial products ultimately fall into two categories. They're either a pesticide or they're a treated article. Pesticides are required to be registered with the EPA under FIFRA in specific categories that indicate how they are meant to be used. For example, an in-can preservative would fall into one category, and then an antimicrobial technology for use in plastics would fall into a different category. There's a cost associated to this registration process that will be representative of the intended use of the products, but there are also other factors included. The technology that BioCote supplies is what we would call, or we do call, an active substance, which falls under the definition of a pesticide and is registered with the EPA. So when our customers manufacture BioCote into their products can either be a pesticide or will more likely fall or be eligible under the treated article exemption of FIFRA. Now, a treated article is a product that contains a pesticide for the purpose of protecting the product itself and is exempt from the requirement to register as long as it meets certain requirements detailed under FIFRA. An example of one of the requirements is how it's marketed, or specifically the marketing claims that are made about the product. So the EPA has strict rules on how to market treated articles, the main one being that treated articles must not make any claims that could be interpreted as having a benefit to the user or the environment as a result of containing an antimicrobial technology. If a treated article were to make inappropriate claims, then the EPA may require the company responsible for that product to register their product as a pesticide or withdraw it from the marketplace. And that process can be quite expensive.
So how do these regulations impact paints and coatings?
So paints and coatings, like any other products that contain a pesticide, fall under FIFRA and the EPA. Companies that make these products can either register their product as a pesticide, or they can choose to market their product as a treated article. So when we begin to work with a coatings company, we will often ask our prospective customers to think about why their customer is buying their product and why that product exists with an antimicrobial technology. For coatings as treated articles specifically, because they are typically applied to other surfaces, the marketing of the antimicrobial benefits have to be very strictly compliant with the EPA guidelines, meaning that the antimicrobial benefit is only for the coating itself. Also recommend a heavy focus on the non-antimicrobial features, such as the decorative or the protective properties a coating may have. As within the EPA guidelines for antimicrobial technology, it should always be marketed as an additional product feature or benefit, not a primary one, and shouldn't be given any greater prominence in marketing efforts. So it has to be marketed in the same color, same font, same size as any of the other features of that particular product. In some instances, for coating specifically, the registration of a coating as a pesticide is unavoidable because the purpose of that coating may be to only provide antimicrobial protection for the surface that the coating is on, or a benefit to the user of that surface, as opposed to the antimicrobial technology protecting the coating itself. A good example of this would be a spray can application of a clear coat that markets universal application for surfaces, but only markets that universal application for an antimicrobial protection for those surfaces, as opposed to it protecting it, kind of giving it other durability protection or decorative purposes. And so from that perspective, or in those instances, we would recommend that customers pursue the registration of that product as a pesticide, which would include submitting relevant data for any claims the customer intends to make about that product to the EPA for approval and then following their registration process.
Okay, my last question for you is, why are these regulations particularly important now?
So we as a business have always felt that the regulations for our industry are incredibly important. You know, they're there to protect industry standards and ultimately they're there to protect consumers. The regulations make sure that when people are buying those products that contain antimicrobial technologies, those people know exactly what they're buying and why they're buying that product. You know, these regulations are important because they're there to make sure that the antimicrobial technologies the products contain are safe for the use they're intended for, and they are checked for any environmental impacts incorporating such technologies might have. You know, they have appropriate data to show that the benefits of their use outweigh any risks associated with that chemical, because that's what antimicrobial technologies are, they're chemicals. Now more than ever, when we have external influences that are impacting customer buying decisions, these regulations are there to protect consumers from potentially spending a lot of money or buying products that contain inappropriate chemicals that fail to deliver on performance claims and benefits they promise, you know, or they're unsafe for that use. For BioCote, we're seeing more and more that customers value compliance with the regulations because of these reasons, which for us adds further credibility and prominence to our brand because of our open and honest approach.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for answering my questions today. I learned a lot.
Thank you. Sorry, there's probably quite a lot of techie information in there.
No, it was really interesting. Thank you. For our viewers, Jennifer will be going into more detail about antimicrobial coatings in an article that we're working on together for our July issue. So keep a lookout for that. Thanks for watching.